What's going on, boys? My name is Nox and welcome back to another video. And today we are discussing my league start plans for 3.17 Siege of the Atlas. So I'm going to be going with an Absolution Necromancer to start. That's because I want to prioritize bossing early on. I think it'll be a lot of fun to see the new content and see the new bosses. So that's what I'm going with. And I know a lot of other folks are as well. The build I chose to go with is Absolution because I really enjoy the playstyle, and in my testing, it kind of gets off the ground with no gear at all. I've done several solo self-found tests through the axe and through the initial maps, and it's just a breeze to play and a joy to play, and you're blowing up the world as soon as things get going. So just pretty generic. We're just grabbing life and some minion damage, a little bit of cast speed here. Minion damage and life, minion damage and minion life, aura effect and reservation efficiency. We have some more minion damage over here. We are picking up the masteries along the way, increased effective offerings. We're grabbing plus 50 to life. We're grabbing mana reservation efficiency. Minions have 100% increased critical strike chance. Some more minions here, increase the number of specters, zombies, and skeletons we get here. More life, a jewel socket, more cast speed for our boys, as well as a 30% chance to gain onslaught on kill, which will be very, very nice for speeding up clear. And then we're going to grab Eldritch Battery because Absolution gets pretty expensive pretty quickly. Even in my early testing, sort of beelining towards Absolution and picking up some damage and life along the way is a good choice. 70 mana per cast is quite hefty to pay when you're trying to reserve auras and things like that. And then finally we head down here towards some block, a little bit more life. We had some life over here, and we're grabbing some spell suppression nodes. The whole purpose of this entire pathing is to get this spell suppression section right here, which gives us a ton of spell suppression and prevent plus 3% of spell damage. So that's very, very nice in my opinion, and it's a very good way to prevent yourself from dying to early mistakes you're making when you don't know a boss. My plan was to make a character that's super tanky. This build is, borderline hardcore viable. You could take out some damage and add a few more life nodes and it would be insane. I have 4.5k life with a tabula equipped. Again, this is a level 95 tree, so pretty far up there, but you're not going to be dying if you're this tanky. Hopefully, anyway. Let's get into the skills. So we have Absolution. These are the first 3 links that I wanted to pick up with it and I found to be most efficient. Physical to lightning is great. Extra just flat damage and converts everything to elemental. We have Spell Echo. That's making us cast faster and our boys cast faster. And if you don't know, Absolution, when you cast on a boss, only has a 25% chance to summon a Sentinel of Absolution. Those guys are doing all the damage. You're doing basically none. So you want to make sure you have those guys up a lot, and Spell Echo helps with getting more casts out per second. Then we have minion damage, so our minions do more damage. And then eventually when we get a 5 or a 6 link, we're going to do crit damage and critical strikes, which bumps our damage numbers for Absolution way up. I'm not sure how accurate POB is at calculating Absolution's damage, but it always feels to be a lot more than this. I play some other builds with this level of DPS and it does not feel this smooth. So maybe give it a try, and I wouldn't let the numbers fool you or get you down. So this is going to be in a trigger wand once we get the recipe, but we are going to be hard casting these on bosses. We have Desecrate to create corpses. And then we have either Flesh Offering or Bone Offering, depending on what we need. So I'm not sure what I'm going to run into here. If I'm dying a lot and I feel like I need a little bit more tank, I can throw in Bone Offering, get our block well above 50%, or we can do Flesh Offering for the additional cast speed for us and our boys. Assassin's Mark always, because this flat crit scales our minions quite well. Getting to the auras, I'm definitely going to be running Determination, and I'm definitely going to be running Tempest Shield, but I'm not really sure what the rest of them are going to be. I've noticed in every single POB that I make for Absolution, we have Wrath. Like that's what I'm seeing most content creators put on their Absolution. Hatred is just better, at least in POB. Again, this is all provisional. I've I've tested it and it feels really good. One, to have the just extra insane flat damage, but also having you and your minions be able to chill is very, very nice. Just slowing any mobs down, especially if they have turbo, is awesome. So we're probably going to be running Hatred here, which again bumps our damage numbers up, but I'm going to leave those unchecked until I have the reservation efficiency, until I have the right gem sockets, whatever. Defiance Banner for more tankiness, and Vitality for more recovery. We don't get a lot of recovery on the tree here, so this sort of makes up for that. This gets us up to about 10% of our health, roughly, in recovery per second, which is very, very nice for bossing. Then we have Carium Golem. These guys are just a big damage buff. They're going to be providing us with Feeding Frenzy. Minion speed is here, so they swing more often, so we have higher uptime on Feeding Frenzy. And then we have Flame Jostling, just because we need Flame Jest somewhere in the build, and this is a good place that I thought to put it. Then we have our little bodyguard cluster here, and this is Raise Spectre and Raise Zombie linked with Meat Shield and Minion Life. Meat Shield keeps our minions super close to us, causes them to do 30% more damage to enemies near you, but that's not really a huge deal. These guys aren't doing hardly anything. And this chance to taunt is incredibly useful because if our minions are being hit, we're not being hit, which is very nice. Minion Life is to keep them alive because we want those specters and we don't want to fuss around with resummoning them all the time. Convocation will be in the build eventually. We can just add that whenever. Let's get into the gear. So we have a Convoking Wand. Doesn't have to be a Convoking Wand. I have +1 level of all physical spell gems. Doesn't have to be minion spell gems. It can be physical. It can be lightning. It could be all spells. Doesn't matter. Anything works for Absolution. Any of those four, I should say, work for Absolution. And then we have Trigger Socketed Spell when you use a skill with an 8-second cooldown. What that will do is it will create a lot of quality of life in automating this Desecrate and one of our offerings process. So that's why we have that there. We have a Armor and Evasion Shield, and you'll sort of notice an Armor and Evasion theme throughout this build. And that's because we really want 100% chance for spell suppression. When we eventually have more gear and higher rolls on things, you also notice when you go through the POB that all of these rolls on the gear are very, very low. But we want spell suppression, we want cap spell suppression, we want some decent amount of block, life, resistances. That's what all of these things have. This bone helmet, I didn't even need to include this. I'll switch this out for an armor and evasion base later. Like I said, all of these rolls here are like tier 4, tier 5. These are not difficult pieces to get. This amulet seems a little broken, and that's because I just added this in so I didn't have to add individual resistances on all the gear. This is just me being lazy. And again, it doesn't have to be, like you don't need exactly the same resistances on all pieces like I have. You can just do whatever works to cap your resistances. If you're a new player and you're watching this video and you're trying to play Absolution, the first order of business on your gear is to get 75 of all of these elemental resistances. Just do that. We have some life rings and a leather belt for more life. Our flasks are life flask, granite, quicksilver, quartz, and basalt. The reason why we're using quartz is simply for phasing. I don't like being stuck in doorways hoping my minions target something. That's one of the downsides of a minion build. So if I can run through a door and get to the other side so my minions follow me in and start blasting things, that's a good idea. And then going into the calculations so everyone knows what's going on, we have we do have our minions using power and frenzy charges, and I'll get into that when we're looking at the specters. But I only have them set at 2 because in my testing, that's what's been most consistent. Consistently have 2 power charges, consistently have 2 frenzy charges, but not much more than that. Sometimes on a boss we'll get to 3, but most of the time it's 2. We have used a minion skill recently, always, because we're always casting Absolution. Enemy is chilled because we're using Hatred. Enemy is shocked, but I only have effective shock at 5 because we're not going to be really doing too much like damage initially to shock them much more than that. Feeding Frenzy is active because I found it super consistent with the with the uptime of it from Carrion Golem. And that's about it. As far as upgrading from here, you notice I have some uniques in here. One of the first things that I want to farm up is a Devouring Diadem, and that's simply just to have Eldritch Battery and also to have the +1 level of Socketed Gems for my auras, and the mana reservation efficiency is awesome as well. So this will allow us to squeeze something else in. Maybe we'll throw in a Skitter Bots. Maybe we'll just be able to throw in another aura. We'll see when the time comes. And then the chess piece that I would like to get 6 linked as quickly as possible, that's not a tabula, is a Flesh Crafter. And the reason for that is it basically turns our little minions into Inquisitors. They completely ignore monster elemental resistances, so they just do full damage all the time. It means you can't penetrate resistances either. It means a curse on hit ring is useless. This just eliminates the need for us to care about monster elemental resistances, and since all of our damage is elemental, this is a very, very, very strong item. This does not calculate properly in Path of Building, so if we were to throw this on, I would basically just say that the enemy is standard, so it doesn't have the extra resistances that Shaper has, and you'll see that our damage goes up pretty significantly. That's a pretty big jump in DPS from there to there. Moving on, I do not think there is anything else to cover right now. This is mostly just a provisional thing. This is my plan for the league. Don't take it as gospel. There's plenty of ways to build this character. There's plenty of really great guides that are super in-depth, but League Start is, I mean, for me, all about figuring out something new, figuring out how to have the most fun with something, and going from there. POB will be in the description below. I'm super excited for League Start. I hope you are too. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.